lots of this is there's lots of TT taking place and lots of opportunities for people to engage with, but so what? And what does that mean? And how we can draw out social outcomes would demonstrate that so what factor. So we'll move along, slide 3. Sorry, just letting people in basically. So what we're going to focus on really is 2 main points of strategy or legislation. So what they may be what you've been aware of in the past. Some of the information might be quite new. The first bit we're going to sort of focus on, or the first sort of half of the workshop, is around the DCMS Sporting Future, the strategy for an active nation. This is a 10-year strategy. It was first released in December 2015 and looks at the drive and the focus of the government around physical activity across the nation, and focuses really around 5 key outcomes that we would consider to be social outcomes. Physical well-being being one of them, mental well-being, individual development, social and community development, and economic development. And the second bit of almost strategy and legislation is what's already been referenced this morning around Sport England and the Uniting the Movement. If you imagine that the first sort of part in terms of DCMS is about the outcomes that can be achieved and is sort of happening right now, Sport England's strategy is very, very new, released January 2021, and looks at the how. So we've got the what through DCMS, and the Sport England is exactly the how. How are we going to draw out these social outcomes? What are the interventions that can be done? What are the focus areas that can be driven to unlock resources, funding, and opportunities of that nature, but also to really drive those social outcomes? For example, connection with communities could then draw out a lot of opportunities around social and community development. Active environments could support with economic development, community development. Positive experience for children and young people could support that individual development. So you start to see how they can speak to each other. And that's basically how we're going to sort of focus on this session. So first of all, we're going to look at the DCMS strategy and talk about the different outcomes that are aligned to that. The slides will be circulated as part of a sort of delegate pack after today. So feel free to make as many notes as you like, but don't feel forced and feel like you're going to miss anything. So with regards to the first key outcome from a DCMS point of view, the physical well-being aspect, well documented that sport and physical activity has health benefits, notably things like reducing health risk, weight management, strengthening bones and muscles, which inevitably will help people carry out everyday tasks and essentially live longer. In support, there are a range of table tennis opportunities and programs suitable for a variety of ability and physical activity levels. So when we talk about physical activity, we're talking about governmental guidelines or the Chief Medical Officer guidelines of 30 minutes a day and the recommended amount. And to be sort of almost considered as being inactive, there's something like 30 minutes less a week for somebody to be inactive. Now, we know that people will engage with activity on various different levels and various different programs and various different opportunities. So again, referring back to Table Tennis England opportunities, we have a selection and a varied amount of programs that can support with people to engage at various levels. That could be something like Ping, in terms of taking opportunities out into the public domain, into places where people spend time and supporting that sort of behaviour change. It could be taking opportunities to support with children and young people in a fun environment that's engaging into the sport for the very first time. And then of course we have things like clubs and leagues, but also adapted versions of the game that suit around people's lifestyle in terms of format, and generally being a bit more accessible than perhaps programs have been in the past. So there's a wide array of programs to support a wide array of people's lifestyles, ability levels, keenness, I guess, and eagerness to engage with the sport, right across the board, from picking up that first bat to elite level performance programs. So physical well-being and how Table Tennis England supports that is really quite strong. And again, it comes back to that whole wider movement about how physical activity is the main driver, and the sport as well to support that. What we do have is a link at the bottom there, which refers to our impact report. And on there, you'll find relevant case studies and evidence where we've supported physical well-being, physical activity as an outcome, and demonstrated that. And a couple of such examples are on the screen at the minute. So we have, as I've said, we've got programs that can support in various different environments. One particular case study on the left there, a gentleman called Joseph, who had engaged with table tennis in part of our ping pong parlour programme, and was fairly inactive, and wanted to become more active, but active for various different reasons, and in an opportunity where it was quite sociable. Ping pong parlours presented an opportunity to do that, an ideal opportunity, where he originally encountered barriers to being active. So a key example there of how we've supported physical activity and engaged somebody without the opportunity necessarily to be active. And then we've had some impact and some work around adapting formats of leagues, and the BTT programme and the impact that they've had on clubs and leagues to support with audience specific opportunities to suit lifestyles and to suit engagement levels, and create that physical activity opportunity in a slightly different format that might be normally considered as a way to like a standard approach to be active. BTT has been able to adapt that and work with clubs and leagues to provide opportunities, whether it be this girl can sessions, female specific sessions, shorter format leagues, and different opportunities again to support with that engagement into physical activity. Mental wellbeing is, of course, a really strong outcome with regards to DCMS, and it's no secret amongst all of us on the call that table tennis can certainly support with a person's mental wellbeing, whether it be mastering new skills or increasing self-confidence, as sort of Kate alluded to in the chat. We know that table tennis can certainly support that. And research has shown that exercise can be just as effective as antidepressants for those with a mild clinical depression. And things like Ping in the Community, Bat and Chat programs, where it offers the opportunity to socialise, discuss and chat through life, I guess, and opportunities to meet new people, can support with mental health challenges that some people encounter, but also helps to focus cognitive behaviours and cognitive thought patterns in a positive way through the sport. So we know that table tennis improves cognitive function, develops social skills and builds confidence and self-esteem right across the board, whether it be, again, picking up a bat for the first time in a Ping programme, or even within a club session or a league type activity. The results for mental health are extremely positive. Again, what I probably won't do is refer back to an example for every key outcome, because I'm conscious of we only have an hour and quite a bit to go through. So again, we've referenced the impact report, which has a plethora of evidence-based case studies for people to look into and see exactly how it's being used and actually the outcomes in relation to mental well-being, physical activity and so on. Individual development, again, another key priority through the DCMS strategy, and evidence shows clearly how taking part in sport improves educational behaviours and attainment, and again through that greater self-esteem and confidence and direct cognitive benefits. This can also have a positive impact on employment opportunities available to individuals, and the sport can have a positive role in tackling problems of those who are not in employment, education or training, which are often known as NEET populations. Players that transition into umpiring and coaching, or roles within committees or volunteer coaches into paid roles, is a key example really of where we've seen this within table tennis. So as an individual, they've started playing the sport and then progressed into different roles within voluntary capacity, within committees, leagues, etc. And again, we've got examples of just how that's been achieved through our impact report work that we've done online. But a couple of examples that you can see on screen are, one on the left really is a young lady in Blackpool, the Blackpool Table Tennis Club, that has engaged in the sport initially, having had mental health challenges, and then sort of found that playing table tennis and the club specifically was a welcoming place. And we've talked about that quite a bit this morning, about that welcome and that feeling part of something, and then provided the platform for her to develop and flourish into different roles and more sort of coordinated roles within the club and the league. And having caught up with Lindsay personally and talked this through with her, it's quite evident that she feels that the club and the sport is giving her something that she perhaps hasn't been able to achieve or receive in other aspects of her life. So really key positive in terms of positive example really with regards to how table tennis has supported someone's individual development as well as mental well-being. The one on the right is somebody that we worked with through our ping program and our ping pong parlour program in Cambridge. Fred was an activator as part of the Cambridge City Ping program and did quite a lot of engagement work within the parlour that's in the Grafton Centre, that's hopefully soon to open very soon. And subsequently, through engagement, volunteering roles, was able to qualify as a coach, as an activator, and was able to be employed by Cambridge City to support with their targeted sessions in communities, whether it be underrepresented groups or general activation sessions within the parlour. So having initially engaged as a volunteer and just general enthusiasm for the sport, was also able to gain employment through Cambridge City Council. And then that has transferred into further opportunities with Living Sport as the active partnership within Cambridgeshire. And word sort of got round really with regards to how enthusiastic and how able Fred's is to engage, and did quite a lot of work over the lockdown periods with virtual back and chat sessions and so on. So really good examples there in terms of individuals development. Social and community development can help build stronger, table tennis can help build stronger communities by bringing those people together. That won't be any secret to people on this call or of the conference all day in general, and often from different backgrounds, and people feel, to draw out this outcome, people feel proud of where they live and improve community links and cohesion. To build social capital, clubs who embed themselves within communities in which they are based are perfectly placed to support this outcome. It's useful to consider with regards to engaging those from lower socioeconomic backgrounds as well. We carried out, as part of the diversity action planning work that Greg's covered already this morning, and we've talked about at length, we did a bit of outreach work with clubs that we are aware of and community programs that we're aware of that are taking place, and engaging with the communities for wider social good that's not necessarily just about recruiting new members or player bases, but also in terms of really embedding themselves within the communities in which they serve. And then what came out of that consultation was some key themes really to sort of draw out and sort of pass on in terms of how they operated and how they worked. And it's quite interesting that these drew out across those clubs you can see on the screen. So essentially the clubs had an aspiration to drive and engage with the communities in which they were based, and that's not necessarily working with a distinct area in which they pull people in from further afield, but actually embedding themselves in where they are based, and is their club representative of the communities in which they are, and an aspiration to support that if it wasn't. There was a view to really that taken around changing the perception of the club, and in some cases the building. Is that building for us? Is that building for the communities in which it's placed? And ensuring that people, again, we come back to that point about welcoming, that the club is and the building is welcoming, and people can see that that is an opportunity in our community that is for us. Creating localized networks of partners has been a really key one in terms of this social and community development. So should a club have an aspiration around engaging with those with a disability or female opportunities or those from ethnic diverse communities, what does their network of partners look like? And are they engaged in voluntary organisations or other community groups and organisations that could support with that transition into the sport and into table tennis and eventually the club? And it was really quite evident that these clubs had networks of partners that are signposting and are supporting and recommending opportunities, and it's on a vice versa sort of basis. Development plan and a mission is really key, and it comes back to that point one really about aspiration and driving to engage with the community. And also what's quite important is that the clubs have a representative workforce. So again, somebody that's in a community and seeking opportunities, they want to feel welcome. They want to feel like there are people like me in that particular club, or there are people like me coaching and supporting the club. And a representative workforce has proven to be really key in that engagement. So social and community development, again, is sort of one of the key outcomes that clubs and table tennis has certainly been supporting. And examples on the screen there, perhaps more poignant through the lockdown period, where communities have not been operating in the same way. People have not been able to participate in the same way. The opportunity on the left there around Brighton Table Tennis Club, where they were sort of almost switched models a bit with regards to engagement and looked at supporting the community in other ways, where they couldn't necessarily deliver table tennis. They were looked at supporting with food banks. And that's happened in various different places across the country, not just Brighton, but in certain other clubs as well. And where there's been an opportunity to get bats and balls into parcels or into families' homes to support with their activity levels while they've been in lockdown, we've seen clubs and community partners engage with that way. The top sort of image there is one example we've already talked about already this morning about Falmouth. And there's bespoke sessions around supporting social isolation, female engagement, and generally creating opportunities for people to socialise just as much as play. And then again, the example I've already given in terms of Fred, the Cambridge work and some work within Leicester City as well, we've been able to distribute packs to communities. Again, it just presents the idea that the club is there for the community, whilst also supporting access into the sport and physical activity agendas as well. We do have a bit of an evaluation piece that we've done on the kits that have been distributed, and Sandra mentioned this right at the start in terms of lockdown, families and not being able to access, which will be circulated after today's events as part of the delegate information. So it just gives you an indication of how likely somebody in receipt of bats and balls would want to participate, and there's quite a strong correlation between wanting to find further opportunities, having played at home, on dining tables, on worktop surfaces, and we found out that there was average usage was about 2 to 3 times a week that they would get their kit out at home, and a desire to play further, whether it be outdoor public tables, clubs, community sessions, and so on. A really interesting read that we're happy to share with you following today. Economic development, perhaps the most difficult really to sort of really draw out. And the key example here is the work that we do within ping pong parlours and converting empty shop unit spaces as places to play. The economic impact of sport, how it creates jobs, promotes growth and drives exports, is a fundamental social outcome. And it's useful because it's not just how table tennis contributes to the nation's health and well-being, but also to the economy as well. So where we've had ping pong parlours in places like the Grafton Centre in Cambridge, we've seen increases in sales within a nearby outlet for buying bats and balls. We've seen the opportunities for people to use ping pong parlours to raise money for charitable causes increase. We've seen the selling of balls within sort of gumball dispensers that's gone back into the provision, and footfall in general to shopping centre venues, which as we start to return back to some sort of normal in terms of retail, is really key to drive that footfall back into shopping centres and invest back into places, towns, cities, and the economic structure. And then secondary spends as well has been really useful, and then that contributes back to business. But those are kind of the economic developments that table tennis has caused within sort of venues and sort of areas and other wide businesses. What we also have is a link to an organisation called Give to Local, and this is essentially an organisation that can support with clubs, community groups to boost revenue and opportunities for donations through local businesses. How it works is on the screen, and again, this will be circulated after. I won't go through bullet point after bullet point, but essentially, Give to Local are an organisation that support community sport. A club, and we have quite a few table tennis clubs already sort of working with them. Clubs would work with Give to Local, and Give to Local essentially engage with local businesses around the area, and businesses can then choose to donate to the club that's registered on Give to Local app, and this is a specific app that Give to Local unlock once you're sort of registered with them. And then for a small fee that the Give to Local would take off the top of the donation, that money goes back into the club or into the club for community opportunities. So the business are then supporting community provision, and then vice versa, the club are also supporting the businesses with regards to maybe signposting opportunities, etc., etc. So Give to Local is something, again, information will circulate afterwards, which can support with clubs become more financially sustainable and drive that revenue, which again would support that economic development outcome. So we're just going to do a quick task. I want to take opportunity to quickly reflect on those social outcomes, so 5 in total in relation to the DCMS. I'm going to split the group into breakout rooms, and what I'd like you to do is just discuss and reflect on the experience of meeting those outcomes. So in the chat box, we talked about the different understandings of those outcomes, but what I want to know and what I want to hear about is the experiences you might have with meeting such outcomes. So once we split you up, I want you to have a general discussion and start thinking about perhaps the approaches that were taken, the successes that have been achieved, and any sort of challenges that came out of maybe trying or trying to sort of engage and support those social outcomes, or any opportunities that came even further out the back of an initial intervention that's then sort of snowballed or transferred into something else. So there's 4 key prompts there that I'd like you to discuss and think about how you as a club or you as a coach or you as an organisation has drawn out those social outcomes. And then we'll take some time just to quickly feed that back afterwards. So I'm going to allocate about 5 minutes to this task and break you up accordingly into rooms. So just bear with me a second. We should all get a prompt on the screen to join the relevant room. And there are 4 rooms in total. Anybody having particular trouble joining the room? Are they all okay? David, Maria, are you able to join a room? Or feel free to chat it through with myself. Ah, yeah, did we lose you? You have to come out and back in again. Everybody back in now. Hopefully there's some good discussion. I did try to sort of stealthily dip in and out of some rooms just to kind of listen in and pick out some key themes. But I would invite you now for the next 2 minutes or so, anybody that wishes to feedback on discussions you might have had in your breakout room, specifically around successes, but then the approaches that you've taken around in achieving those, and then particular challenges that you may have faced. So welcome anybody to feed that back. Feel free to do so. Who was in room 1? Harry, would you like to feedback? Then Dave will come to you. There we go.
Yeah. No, basically, we generally felt that the notion of community, we need to get, I would like to get table tennis more in the community than it already is, rather than being based at a central place. As at the moment, we are at mostly sports centres, but in days gone by, it used to be all over the area in working men's clubs, youth clubs, and this is the community involvement that I would like to see back returned.
Okay, brilliant. So some opportunities that may present themselves around how you could extend your reach and embed into the community would be something that you'd be really interested in.
Yeah. We can do this with I'm in the process of doing this with the leisure centre, who do run sort of community involvement programs. So that's going to be honed at a later date.
And where is it that you're based, Harry?
Accrington, Hyndburn to be precise. It's but it covers the whole of the East Lancs area. So we're talking Burnley, Rossendale, Ramsbottom, etc. Colne, Nelson.
Great stuff. Brilliant. Thanks for feeding back, Harry. Anybody can feedback from room 2? Or in general, or Chris, go on then.
I wasn't sure what the room number was in, Colin. I think the things we talked about, we had Ray, and he talked sort of, really about the clubs really promoting the message and promoting the work that you do. And I think one of the challenges, I'm wearing my club hat, so I work for Table Tennis as well, but I'm also involved with the club. So with my club hat on, is actually measuring the social outcomes.
Yeah.
And then, as Ray said, being able to then communicate that out to get partners on board, whether it's a leisure centre or some businesses to support you, something like that. So I feel that's the challenge. I think we all do drive social outcomes through the activity we do by providing people to play table tennis. It's just that challenge of really measuring it and selling it.
Yeah, and also just the one other point as well, which came up was we have multi-table venues, which is becoming the norm. But also we've still got a lot of single table venues, and the structure around that and how we can incorporate those guys or those clubs into the bigger picture, because until there are more multi-table venues, which is great because you can bring a lot more people in, people can engage. There's still that section of that table community with the single venues. So how do we get those guys on board and feel part of that program?
Yeah, definitely. It's about feeling that they're part of something maybe a little bit bigger than just that one particular venue, supporting the wider community. There's something I'll allude to as we go on around some work that we're doing around community hub and spokes, but I'll get onto that. And Dave, I wondered if you could feedback, Dave Randerson.
Yeah, thanks. We discussed a few things, and we said pre-COVID, we all said our sort of over 50s community groups, the Baton Chats or Golden Oldies, as somebody said they're called, were very popular. But since COVID, one of the problems is getting a lot of those members back, or getting those people back, and lost income to clubs because they haven't come back. But then we've got people who are wanting to come and join as new members, but we are currently restricted because of the COVID control measures and numbers in the hall. So it's a juggling act at the moment, trying to get previous members back, and then to try and expand. But we're hoping, well, somebody said with the government restrictions, hopefully the 21st of June, but that doesn't look too promising at the moment either. So it's a juggling, and still a difficult situation at the moment.
Yeah, appreciated. Absolutely. There's almost a trade-off with a lot of things we're talking about today around engagement of new audiences or existing audiences, and actually in a post-COVID world, immediately in a post-COVID world, we're looking at our returning members and those that have linked with us before, perhaps before we start thinking about the wider engagement and bringing new people in. But useful to sort of consider both aspects with regards to people start to re-engage, and the similar sort of reasons why people might be reticent to engage, whether members or not, will be quite apparent. So that could be a confidence, a need to sort of retouch back with the sport, or concerns really about COVID and trying to ease those concerns. And there are certain campaigns that we'll be pushing out there through Table Tennis England to support with that ready to return, whether it be supporting with confidence, passion, motivation, etc. That's great. Thanks for feeding back. I'm going to move on a little bit because I'm conscious of time, but really useful. I think what I'm drawing out from there is the challenges around capacity potentially, and the capturing of information and almost demonstrating those social outcomes to wider local partners, which again, we talked about being really key in terms of creating that network. I'm going to share screen again. Hopefully you'll be able to see. So we've kind of done the theory, I guess, in terms of those social outcomes and the content that sits behind that. And what I want to focus on now is almost the Sport England Uniting the Movement strategy, which may support with the how and what it is that we're going to do or can do to support those wider social outcomes. So Uniting the Movement strategy released January 2021 with Sport England. Sport and physical activity creates more inclusive and connected neighbourhoods. It can be a big part of loving where you live. I'm just going to quickly play a short video, which will put this into a bit more context than perhaps I can do justice. All being well with technology. So I guess one of the key lines in that I sort of drawn out from that video, and that kind of gives you an indication of the sort of direction of travel for Sport England. One of the key lines I pulled out of that, and we've touched on already today, was when we work together, we can make meaningful change. And that might be clubs working with Table Tennis England as a governing body. It might be clubs working with a network of partners. We've already alluded to local leisure providers being able to support with the drive and embedding of activity within the community, but demonstrating the social outcomes that you've had. Again, working with a localized network of partners and working as a unit, all traveling in a similar direction, can achieve great things, really. The Sport England Uniting the Movement strategy focus around 5 big issues, and they're listed on the screen there with regards to those particular issues. We're going to cover content for connecting communities, positive experiences for children and young people, connecting with health and wellbeing and active environments. We're not going to touch too much on the recover and reinvent, which is very much about post-COVID and reacting to that. But a big element to that work and interventions that we'll be planning as Table Tennis England is our Return to the Table campaign, which you will hear more about as the days and weeks progress as we get closer into the summer. So in terms of connecting communities, the focus is on sport and physical activity's ability to make better places to live and bring people together. Table tennis clubs are often in the hearts of the communities, and it's important we maximise on this to further connect with the community, to recruit a representative member base, diversify the audience and reduce health and activity inequalities, specifically amongst those women and girls, ethnically diverse communities, those with a disability or long-term health condition, and populations within lower socioeconomic groups. There's a clear disparity between physical activity levels and underrepresented groups that we must sort of look to reduce. And to support that, it's about maybe changing the perception of not only the sport, but the communities and the clubs in which you serve. Community club is for the community and should be sort of put out in that way, and should also provide opportunities for volunteers, aspirational opportunities for volunteers to engage with and support with the club and the communities that they work with. And again, I keep talking about this, but this working with locally trusted organisations, be it schools, leisure providers, charitable organisations, community groups, youth groups, even things like working men's clubs and things that we've just talked about there. Creating this network and working through and with them can really support with that further embedment into communities. I'll allude to an example that I've mentioned there, and I know Nick's on the call in terms of the work with local community partners for Derby Table Tennis Club. Is they're aspirationally looking to engage those with a disability and long-term health condition, specifically young people. So they're working with partners to support with that aim and drive participation to the club, but then for the club to also support with engagement activities that they'll be carrying out. So again, can't stress enough around that creation of network and working with the communities in which you serve. But it's also not one size fits all, and there's programs, as we sort of alluded to support with various different audiences, various different levels of lifestyle, various different engagement levels and interest levels. And it's important that we don't necessarily think about people or a group of people as one homogeneous group, and think about them as the individual and the various different factors that can influence or support or negatively influence their participation. On the screen is a key diagram really with regards to the different situational and personal factors that could support with an individual's participation. And I guess the thing to really draw out of this is understanding the person, but also understanding that the offer is right. It's at the right time, it's at the right place, it's in the right style, and it's delivered by the right people. And that could be a multitude of different opportunities to support with people's engagement within an immediate community. One thing to particularly pull out with that, and I'm sort of supporting with the work around lower socioeconomic groups and engagement tactics we support through our diversity action plan, is Street Games recently published research that would suggest that those from a lower socioeconomic group or families would not be able to pay any more than £3.20 per session, or for sport and leisure in general. What with home bills and all the other things that they have to do, the research suggests that £3.20.21 is almost what is left spare really with regards to sport and leisure activities. So it's worth considering in terms of that when we think about community environments, social environments, and the audiences we're looking to engage. Positive experience for children and young people. Again, we've got programs to suit, and Table Tennis Kids, TT Kids, is a great opportunity for whether it be club, school, or at home for people to engage. Satellite Club program is very much about providing opportunities for children and young people, working with active partnerships, provide opportunities that may not be located within the club base, but outside, and working with other partners to support that. And then Sported is the UK's largest network of community groups supporting over 500,000 young people to overcome barriers to reach their full potential. And Sported work with quite a number of table tennis clubs already to almost audit their engagement and support them with engagement programs and tactics to engage the audiences in which they're looking to serve within those communities. But they also really support with insight and information with engagement tactics within communities. And we're about to work with Sported on, or we are working with Sported on Ping Birmingham, which is the opportunity we're providing in lead up to the Commonwealth Games. So we'll be drawing out a lot of key learning from that and the work that they provide, and passing that and disseminating that through to clubs. Connect with health and wellbeing, again, is a key issue from Sport England, and we've already heard from Peter with regards to Ping Pong for You and their adapted activities. Strengthening connections between sport, physical activity, health and wellbeing, so more people can feel the benefit and advocate for an active life. So we have national partnerships with organisations who embrace table tennis in various forms and support audiences living with a disability or long-term health condition. One thing to particularly point out is our work with Community Integrated Care, who are the largest adult social care charity in the country, and they've developed a platform called care2play.co.uk, which is almost about passing on information to social care workers in terms of their work with service users and clients to be able to deliver table tennis in the setting in which they're based. And that means about adapting the style, adapting the opportunity, adapting the equipment, etc. Something that Ping Pong PU have also alluded to. And the other thing there to mention, and this again will be circulated as part of the delegate notes, is our work with Sport for Confidence. And we've just finalised what we call the therapeutic use of table tennis guide, which almost presents what it is and I guess why you would want to introduce table tennis into an audience that have a disability or long-term health condition. And this is a PDF document that will be circulated again to you, but sets the scene and supports with that, planting the seed with regards to the health sector and the wider sector that may be supporting those with a disability, to sort of show that there is evidence and there is rationale as to why table tennis is a really great opportunity for people to engage with. And we're more than happy to share that with all of our members and all of our clubs. And there's an element in there that breaks up things like body functions, activity demands, the performance skills that table tennis can support and provide. Conscious of time, so if I'm sort of rushing a little bit, then I do apologise, but I'll be as thorough as possible. Active environments is one of is the last big issue with regards to Sport England, uniting the movement. And the biggest thing to sort of draw out of this particular slide is how Ping and the introduction of outdoor public tables can really support with that creation of active environments. So places and spaces that make it easier for people to be active, whether that be public tables in train stations, parks, open spaces, or converting ping pong parlour units. Ping is generally the umbrella term that would support this aim. And we want to work with more clubs as lead partners to develop Ping programs in particular areas where historically we've worked with councils and active partnerships. We want the clubs to be able to take the lead on a lot of Ping programs and drive the direction of travel for that particular project, to not only meet aims and objectives of the club, but also to be able to provide that menu of opportunities and to be better in tune with the communities that we know Ping can be able to connect with, and really draw out those social outcomes. So Ping as an opportunity, as an entity, as a program, Ping in the community programs, ping pong parlour programs, we're keen to see more clubs embrace and engage with. There's already quite a significant amount of engagement, but we want there to be sort of, I guess we want there to be some more. So we may not have time to completely reflect on today, because conscious of the sort of lunch break and Pride of Table Tennis Awards and so on. But what I would like to know and hear from you just for the next maybe 2 minutes or so is your immediate thoughts of this particular workshop. I'm not going to ask you to do an evaluation or anything, just kind of off the top of your head thoughts, but actually what it is that you'll be able to take away from today's session, and what you might need in order to make things happen, would be achievement of those social outcomes or implementing some of the how in terms of the united movement. So I welcome you to just unmute and feel free to speak up and just air any kind of ideas that you might have with regards to takeaways.
Oh, just thought I'd say that that's a fantastic presentation. The ideas and work going on is extremely positive. I'm just wondering actually whether you might be able to share the slide deck at some stage. I mean, I think it's a brilliant overview as to all the good work that's going on in this space, and it'd be good to share. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. That's. I'd like to say it's already on its way to you, but it's certainly in a file for stuff to be sent. So yeah, you can absolutely have the files, you can absolutely have the presentation, and importantly, the resources that are aligned to that. So the resource guides and the information. And again, just to reiterate, meeting of social outcomes, taking this information in is puts you in a great place with regards to unpicking localized funding and resources. Just on that point, this slide on the screen at the minute gives you the references with all the different opportunities in which we've talked about today, be it legislation, strategy, organisations we're currently working with to support these aims, and resources you can use to unpick that.
That's great, thank you.
Any other thoughts?
Just a quick one, if that's okay. I'm in a very privileged position. We've got 8 tables permanently up at Keighley Table Tennis Centre, and it occurs to me how often all 8 of them, or the majority of them, are unused at different times of the day and the week, and that the effort involved in reaching out to get different groups of people here is sometimes prohibitive. But looking at that list that you've got there of people who are already skilled at doing that reach out, I think a lot of clubs, even if they only have 1 table or 2 tables, those tables are probably not used far more than they are used, and that perhaps we ought to be asking people to help us use that facility more. It's certainly food for thought for me, and it's something I'll be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be local groups and organisations that, you know, if advocated right and presented right, will want to engage with table tennis, and we see that a lot through working with specific charities, be it people like the Stroke Association or Alzheimer's UK, trying to introduce table tennis as a secondary activity or an activity to meet wider social aims that they might be looking at. And it's that advocacy role, and for us to be able to play that and then link you in, I guess, with regards to the opportunities, the locations and stuff is key. So we'll continue, I guess, to do that. But also when a ping project lands or when a specific project lands, it's about how we communicate that, and over the net opportunities, newsletter opportunities, publications, website articles, in tune with those, so that you can see actually we're working in Birmingham through Sported, but that's a model that we want to scale up. So understanding the work that we're doing, we then want to push that in places like Hull and Derby and everywhere really. So we're kind of doing pilot work to be able to enable that.
Can I just add one thing, if that's okay? And I think it would be useful to know of any clubs that are or table tennis groups that are within this network, or, you know, and if they want to ask a question within their own wider networks, who would be interested in the initiatives that you've just shared, because I think if we get a list of those clubs together, we, you know, Table Tennis England club development support officers could make those initial contacts directly and have that direct link.
Yeah, I think that's really useful to do that. And if people wanted to express an interest and sort of put themselves forward, so to speak, that would really help in terms of creation of footprints in a town, city, and linking it all together so that we've got our table tennis community serving the needs of what a charitable organisation might be wanting to do that we've not been able to sort of pass that on. So yes, I would welcome that. And maybe for the next 30 seconds or so, should anything ring out, just drop it in the chat box with regards to the club and opportunities you're looking to engage with, and they can extract that and link you in post today. And then I'm going to have to be quiet, because we're going to have to move on into the awards and to lunch, and I've already got quite a reputation for waffling on and overrunning. So
thank you very much indeed what you've done today. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks for your kind words, and I hope you found it really useful.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very useful indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, very informative, Colin. Thanks.
Great stuff. Thanks, Steve. What I'm thinking we'll do on the delegate stuff, we'll include a bit of an expression of interest in reference to this workshop, and then you could quickly respond and reply back to us with regards to that, and that'll be something I'd be able to pick up in terms of my role and connect you. So we'll do that in the first instance, and thank you for your time and for your engagement. Really positive stuff, and look forward to further opportunities for the rest of the day.
Okay.